Good day, good people. Let's talk about 3 things everybody should know as it pertains to mental health or psychology. Whether you're a young person, whether you're an older person, guy, girl, doesn't matter, across the board. These are the 3 things that everyone should know. It should be common knowledge. Maybe you've heard of them, maybe you haven't. That's my role to provide them to you today. The very first one, ready? Validating emotions. When you're talking to your friends, when you're talking to your family members, when you're talking to people in your life, you hear them tell you about their stories and tell you about their life and tell you about their upbringings and their trials and tribulations and their triumphs. And what we often do is we place an evaluative judgment on those things. A friend of yours says, I just failed a test and I feel terrible. You say, it's not a big deal. What are you doing? You're adding an evaluation to that event, regardless of how your friend feels about it. And now your friend has to adjust his evaluation, his feeling based on what you just said. Here's the problem with that. When your friend goes through something terrible, and the first human reaction is we want to downplay it. His girlfriend cheated on him and you go, well, look, it's not that bad. People get cheated on all the time. Well, what you're doing is you're trying to say, look, you shouldn't feel bad about what's happened to you. In other words, you are wrong to feel the way that you do. Not only does this person now feel upset, but now they feel guilty because they think they're doing something wrong, and they're going to feel stress about this feeling, but they're going to keep feeling this feeling, which is going to lead to more stress. So you're leading them into this cycle of stress and guilt and exacerbating whatever emotion they already feel. So if it's anger, if it's sadness, whatever it may be. So we want to be careful when someone shares us something, like let's say your friend says, I did a push-up, and he's never done it or she's never done a push-up before. They do not go to the gym at all. For you to say, yeah, dude, big deal, I can do 50. What we do is we bury his perspective, we bury his view on the matter. Rather than asking him, one of my favorite questions in the world, which I've talked about before, is, what does that mean to you? What does being able to do a push-up mean to you? And they go, well, I'm super excited because I don't work out at all. And doing this push-up is a big sign of things to come. I didn't think I could do it. I feel a lot more confident in myself. And if I could do 1 today, I could do 3 by Wednesday. So all of a sudden, it means a lot about him. It means a lot about his identity. It means a lot in terms of habit building, in terms of grit, in terms of persistence and dedication. And what we do when someone tells us an event is if we downplay or overplay the scenario, we're not always doing the best for our friend or for our family member, or for this person that we care about. So the next time a friend, family member, or someone says, look, I'm not going through a very good time right now, and they share with you something that makes them upset or frustrated or angry, be careful about providing your own judgment. Take a step back and think, this is making my friend or family member or classmate upset or angry or whatever emotion this is provoking from them. Maybe if I was in his position, it would provoke the same emotion from me. Maybe it wouldn't. But just because this thing that he's telling me doesn't sound like a big deal to me, that doesn't mean it isn't a big deal for him. And the moment you'll recognize that, it's going to make people feel a lot better. It's going to make people feel a lot more encouraged to want to speak out about their problems. I would argue one reason that people don't talk enough about what they're going through is that people are going to downplay it. Let's say a person has relationship problems, and in their head they open up to a friend, they go, dude, it's not a big deal, you're being too sensitive. Well, guess what happens? Now, next time when they have relationship problems, they're not going to want to open up. And now, you're adding to that negative self-talk, which says, I shouldn't be upset about this, I'm being too sensitive. I shouldn't be upset about this, I'm being too sensitive. Which, is that the case? We don't know. Maybe the person is actually being too sensitive. But the problem is, they're not able to come to that conclusion by themselves. They're being guided by someone else. They're getting the red light or the green light from the other person, as opposed to themselves sitting back and critically thinking about the situation. So we recognize that this is a hugely important area. This could be a coworker, a classmate, someone you're in a relationship with, a friend, a family member, a niece, a nephew. When people tell you things, be considerate. What does that mean to them? How does that make them feel? Why is it a big deal to you? Or why is it not a big deal to you at all? Okay, interesting. And just be cautious before you give your own take on the matter. And that's a huge one. If you do that, you are already so much more considerate and so much more thoughtful than the majority of people who don't think before they speak. So that's a huge one. Okay, number one. Number two, you could be so much more than you are right now. Give it your best, give it your all. So that when the day is done and you rest and you put your head on the pillow, you say, I gave it my all. Anything that was in my control, I gave it my best. Now, best doesn't mean pushing yourself to a burnout. There's an element of balance in there, taking care of your health and your happiness and making sure you're doing well. But it's this idea of giving all that you can give to a reasonable extent. Why? Look, this whole idea of cliche, treat other people how you want to be treated or be the best at everything. It's not a matter of be number one competitiveness. It's you want to associate this idea of being competent, being persistent, being patient, and being present in all aspects of your life. If you do karate once a week, that doesn't mean you have to be the best karate martial artist in the world, but when you're there, you are present and you are giving your all. You're not thinking about anything else. You're going to train just as hard as you need to train. You're going to be as kind to your fellow group members, just as kind as you need to be, as aggressive as you need to be, as disciplined as you need to be, and you're going to push yourself. Now you step out of that karate club or whatever group you're affiliated with, and you put that same mentality towards other aspects of your life. If you're a cashier at a grocery store, aim to be the best cashier that you could be. Aim to be the best son, the best daughter you could be, the best niece, the best nephew, the best uncle, the best aunt, the best parent, the best father, the best mother, the best employee, the best employer that you could possibly be. Think about what the best whatever thing looks like to you. And be that person for someone else. Because what it's teaching you over time is to show up at every moment. It's to be there. It's to give it your all. To not just 50% half-assed at 60%. Give it your 90%. Give it your 100%. As long as you're still taking care of your health first. And this doesn't mean you become a pushover. Because it's not, I'm letting people take advantage of me. It's, I want to do good. I want to give back. I want to have an impact. I want to have an influence. And there's a huge difference between voluntarily being consciously aware of the impact that you want to do versus involuntarily just doing favors for people over and over again. There's a difference in autonomy. There's a difference of freedom. There's a difference of assertiveness. And the first one, you're assertive. I'm doing this for you because I want to do this for you. Because it's the right thing to do, because it makes you feel good and it makes me feel good. That's being assertive. If you're just doing favors for people left and right and you're becoming a pushover, that's not what I'm talking about. Because you're not doing it for the goodness of your heart. You're doing it because you're too agreeable. You're doing it because you don't enjoy confrontation. You're doing it not because you really want to do it. And then you got to take a step back in the mirror and think about why you're doing what you're doing and the feeling behind doing it. Is it fear of confrontation, fear of disappointment? Or is it something else? And there's this idea that goes, look, a coworker of mine was telling me, Daniel, you could be the best, name it, cashier in the world at the local grocery store. You could be the best fast food worker. Majority of positions that are not commission-based do not reward you anymore for doing more work than your other peers. There's a great line by Chael Sonnen. If you know, you know. He was talking about MMA. He said, look, the best thing you could do if you're an MMA fighter is you fight the weakest guy in front of the largest audience for the most amount of money. Listen to this. If you're a professional fighter, you want to fight the weakest guy in front of the largest audience for the most amount of money. Logically, it makes sense. If you can work half as hard as other people, but make as much money as them, it's a more logically effective way to work. Like it is, like just objectively speaking. If me and you both put in the same amount of effort and we make the same salary, that's one thing. But if I put in half your effort, if I work less hours than you and I still make the same amount of money, well, you would think, Daniel, this makes more sense. This is a more efficient way to go about it. The only thing you should be skeptical of is that kind of thinking focuses on cutting corners. And look, There's a level of subjectivity here. Because what I've just said to some people makes total sense. Daniel, if I can go to work, go to the bathroom, which just means being on my phone, not have to work hard, whistle around, pretend to work, pretend to like just reshelf things that don't actually need reshelving or restocking, and I can make the same money as someone who's working their butt off, that's what I want to do. Why put in the extra effort if it's not going to be rewarded? And I totally understand that way of thinking, just like Mr. Cho's son in there. The opposite school of thought goes, look, it's not so much about what you do here. It's about the impact that it has on you psychologically later on in life. When you give your best, when you put your best foot forward, it teaches you that no matter whether I'm at a party, I want to put my best foot forward in terms of first impressions. When I'm meeting someone new, if I'm going to a new club, if I've got a new employer, I want to be the best employer I can be. I want to be punctual. I want to be professional. If I'm an employer, I want to be kind. I want to be disciplined and assertive. I want to be giving. I want to be open-minded to the concerns of my employees. So you want to give your best. If you're a parent, you want to be the best dad or mom possible. You want to put high standards for your kids so you can push them so they can grab them. And yet in the same tone, you want to meet them with love and encouragement and kindness and open-mindedness and tell them it's okay. And you just want them to do your best, to do their best. So now the question becomes, well, Daniel, which is better? You're clearly leaning towards the one that says do your best and give it your all. But going to the earlier school of thought, if I'm not going to get paid anymore, if it's not a commission-based thing, if it's not like a private personal trainer or something, or like a real estate agent where more hours put in doesn't equate to making more money, why would I want to do such a thing? And you say, for me, it's not worth it. Look, that's something that's on your plate. There are people who go one way, there are people who go the other way. My only recommendation to you would be try both. If you're someone who's been cutting corners, who's been taking it easy, who's been slacking off because you can and you've been getting away with it, try the other way. Try giving it your all. Try putting in that extra effort. See what happens. What's the response from your employees? What's the response from your coworkers, from your family members, from your friends? When you're in a relationship and you know you don't have to do anything special for your lady because she's not going to leave you. What happens when you start getting her flowers unexpectedly? When you start taking her out to date night? When you spend a little bit more time with her? Watch what happens. And if that behavior is rewarded, if it's positively reinforced, if you see it as appreciated, if you see it as acknowledged, if you see someone doesn't take it for granted, I promise you, you'll keep doing it even more, and it'll make you feel better about yourself. It'll actually make you feel more confident in your own skin, and it'll inspire the other person to do the same thing. You're not doing it so the other person does it. You're doing it for the sake of doing it, and then they end up doing it too. Or you might be in a workplace which is corrupt. Look, corrupt doesn't necessarily mean illegal. It just means people don't follow the rules. People take advantage of the rules all the time. The supervisor could give two hoots about how you work. You put in the extra hours. No one cares. You're not rewarded. You're not acknowledged. You will not get a promotion. Then it might be a good idea to look for another job. Otherwise, in your own respect, why put in the hours if it's not going to be acknowledged, if it's not going to be praised, if there is you don't see a greater difference in what you're doing. And again, you're not doing it so you can compliment me. I'm not putting my best foot forward so I can get a promotion. That is just a side effect. That is a consequence, an unintended consequence almost. You're doing it because you want a better interaction with the customers. You want a better interaction with your coworkers. You want to get along better. But if you're doing this and no one cares and the customers aren't any happier and business, nothing happens and it's not any easier for your coworkers, you're not making life easier for anybody, after putting in 100% effort, well, then you got to use your own discretion. So first one was validating emotions. Second one was putting your best foot forward, with the exception of being efficient and cost effective and judging the context to make sure you don't get exploited. The last one, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, is this. If we can remember to validate people's emotions, not just our own, but other people's. If we can remember to give it our all, to give it our best when we can. There are going to be times when you don't feel good, when you feel bummed out, when you feel sad, when you feel stressed, when you feel upset, when you feel frustrated. When this happens, you're going to have an inclination to pull away. I don't want to see my friends. I don't want to go to work. I don't want to leave the house. I just want to stay at home. And you're going to do something that's safe and relatively low risk. This might be scrolling on TikTok. This might be YouTube videos. This might be Netflix. This might be sleeping. This might literally be lying down staring at the ceiling. This might be engaging in marijuana or alcohol use. This might be in gaming. One thing that's really, really important is this. Remember this. Most people, when they feel upset, they wait until they feel better to engage in things that make them happy. When what they should actually do is when people feel upset, they should engage in those things that used to make them happy, and then the feeling will come afterwards. People say, I don't feel like working out, so I'm not going to. That's not correct, my friends. The correct thing is, I'm going to work out, and then I'm going to feel better, and then I'm actually going to feel like doing it again tomorrow. Because if you say, well, I don't feel like it, you might not feel like it for weeks, for months. Be careful waiting for that feeling, especially when you're in a bad place in relation to burnout, in relation to stress, in relation to some depressive symptoms. In those worst moments, I'll bet any amount of money on this. If you're in a bad place and all you want to do is withdraw from society, withdraw from school, I don't want to go to school, I don't want to go to work, I don't want to see my friends. In that moment, close your eyes and think, when I was happy, what was I doing? It doesn't matter how you feel right now. When I was happy, what was I engaging in that was amplifying my happiness? And you might say, well, me and my friends, we go out to this bar. This was our favorite bar. Okay, that was one. All right. Me and a couple of people, we would go out to a spin class. That was a big thing that we used to do. There's this hike that I really love taking when I was happy, when I was in a good mood. Go do the things that you did when you were in a good mood, and they will put you in a good mood. Don't wait for the feeling to do those things. I don't feel like seeing my friends. Go see your friends anyway. It'll make you feel better. And then you come home going, that was great. And then you're more likely to see your friends again. If you need to, literally write a list and go, right now at this age, this is what makes me the most happy. When you were 10 years old, you enjoyed playing with action figures and you enjoyed a Happy Meal, right? Now, if you're 19 now, if you're 29, if you're 39, those things have changed over time. What is it? Well, I just bought a new motorcycle. Going on that makes me happy. Seeing my friends here makes me happy. Going to the gym makes me happy. Dancing and listening to my favorite music, that's what makes me happy. So when you're ever in a state where you're bummed out, engage in the actions that used to make you happy. And I promise you those feelings will come back. And then you'll feel motivated, and then you'll feel inspired to re-engage in those actions, and it'll continue like a cycle. The hardest thing, without a doubt, is when you fall out of that, when you stop doing those things that make you happy because you're upset, because you're in a bad place, because you're stressed, the hardest thing is going back into it. It's kind of like going into cold water. I don't know how many of you take cold showers, but it's one of those things where the beginning, in my opinion, is the worst. The lead up, you get in, it's cold. The moment you come out, it's one of the most incredible feelings in the world. Not to oversell it. It's not that cold where you hate yourself, but it's a little uncomfortable and you wish you weren't in there. You do it for 2 to 3 minutes, you come out, you feel incredible. You feel incredible and it motivates you to do it again the next day. Engaging in those happy things is very similar. In the beginning, you have no motivation, you have no feeling towards it. Then all of a sudden you force yourself to do it. You're like, you know what? That was actually pretty good. That felt really good. I need to do that more often. Folks, I hope you enjoyed. I hope those are things that were interesting. I don't know if those are things that you've heard before, or maybe you haven't. As always, remember the 3: validating emotions, yourself and others, putting your best foot forward, unless you notice there's literally 0 outcome. Like, what happens when you put your best foot forward? If it's nothing, then reconsider the strategy or reconsider your environment. If it's something, keep going. And finally, the last one being the way that you look at life, the way that you look at yourself, those activities that used to make you happy, whether you felt like doing them or whether you didn't feel like doing them. And pushing yourself out of your comfort zone to do those things even when you don't quote unquote feel like it. Folks, this has been another episode. My name is Daniel. I hope this was entertaining. I hope this was educational. Take care of yourselves and stay safe, everybody. Bye-bye.